Hello everybody, thank you for watching. I want to talk about the interesting topic of the heavenly sign in Revelation chapter 12 of the woman and also the red dragon. But let me start from the beginning in Genesis chapter 1 verse 14 to show that God used these stars in heavens and constellations as a sign. And God went on to say, let luminaries come into the expanse of the heavens to make a division between the day and the night, and they must serve as signs, and for seasons and for days and for years. Yes, one of the main reasons that God created these constellations were for signs. And I don't know if many people know this, but in the first time that when Christ was born, there was a sign in heaven. Also, Virgo, the woman, gave birth back then to planet Jupiter, as it's going to do soon. And in Isaiah chapter 7 verse 14, this is what happened the first time when Jesus was born, and that's why the three wise men or astrologers knew that he was born. Therefore Yahweh, this is Isaiah 7:14, therefore Yahweh himself will give you men a sign. Look, the maiden herself will actually become pregnant, and she is given forth to a son. Yeah, and she will certainly call his name Emmanuel. It was twofold, yet with Virgin Mary giving birth to Jesus, but it says here, and the maiden herself will actually become pregnant and give birth. When the sign in heaven, Virgo, gave birth to Jupiter back then. Now bringing it forward to to the heavenly sign in Revelation chapter 12 verse 1 and 2, which says, and it says here, and a great sign was seen in heaven, a woman arrayed with the sun and the moon beneath her feet, and on her head was a crown of 12 stars. And she was pregnant, and she cries out in pains in her agony to give birth. As you can see there, the only time it will actually match that will be next year, 23rd of September 2017, once in 7,000 years. And as you can see, she's arrayed with the sun, moon under her feet, and 12 stars above her head, Leo, constellation, and 3 wandering stars, Mars, Mercury and Sun. And she's about to give birth, which is Jupiter will actually be in a womb for 42 weeks at that time, and would be about to give birth. And Jupiter would be representing the King planet, or Messiah planet, which is soon to be given. She's soon to be given birth soon after that date, but it was in the womb for 42 weeks in a retrograde, going in a circular motion within the womb of Virgo. So on September 23rd 2017, a sign forms in the heavens that fits the requirements of Revelation 12. As far as can be determined by computer models, this is the only time the sign will occur in history. Therefore, this would literally be the great sign of Revelation, that is chapter 12, that appears in heaven. The woman in heaven is Virgo, the Virgin, with the sun clothing Virgo, and the moon is actually under feet, and a garland of 12 stars, as I said, Leo. And Mercury, Mars and Venus are the wandering stars, planets. So the last element is a sign of the Virgin must be with child, and the planet of the star of the Messiah is Jupiter, as I said, at this time in the womb of Virgo. Again, no replication of this sign has yet to be found. The problem with this sign is that all too often it takes only a symbol for what it represents, and not considered an actual sign placed in the heavens by God. I believe this is really a sign in heaven, and represents the birth of the Messiah from the Virgin of Israel. But not in a literal sense, because he said, the world will see me no more, but in a spiritual sense. And therefore, and to be seen, therefore, to understand the time at which a significant event occurs. I really believe something major will happen at around that time, soon after she gives birth, and I will get onto that. So you see, but in relation to the 70 week of Daniel's, we can determine exactly where this timeline ends. No, sorry, what I meant is that the problem then is to determine where it occurs within the timeline of the ends of the days. End of days, time of the end. Where does it actually occur in relation to the 70th week of Daniel, the final period of 7 years before Messiah comes to rule the planet? The solution lies within Micah 5. It says it in Micah 5, the timeline of the Messiah is given. First, he was born in Bethlehem, and he's to be known as the one who will be ruler in Israel. Then Jesus came. When Jesus came, he presented himself as the Prince on Palm Sunday. But then he was later crucified that week on Passover. He did not become a world ruler from the Jerusalem at the time. Micah then says that that Messiah will be given up until the time when that she who is in labour has given birth. So we can see by Micah chapter 5. So Micah chapter 5 gives us a clue what actually happens when in Revelation chapter 12, sign in heaven, 23rd September 2017 actually occurs. And according to Micah chapter 5 verse 3, therefore he will give them up, that's Christ, Yeshua, until the time that she who is given birth actually gives birth. The one in heaven, see the Son in heaven, and the rest of his brothers will return to the sons of Israel. Can you imagine that? What that means is Israel's remnant will actually return to Israel only after she gives birth. But we're talking about a spiritual sense also, in a spiritual sense also, and this actually occurs. She actually gives birth. Jupiter gives birth to. Virgo gives birth to Jupiter on the November the 13th, 2017. So over a month after the sign in heaven, she is given birth. This is it. Jupiter emerges and is joined in conjunction with Venus. This day also comes 444 days after their previous conjunction on August 27th, 2016. That marks Jupiter's entry into, to Virgo. But I believe it's more likely the beginning of the sign in heaven will actually commence on the 20th of November 2016, which is very, very soon. This is when the constellation is conception, as it were, begins. The 20th of November 2016. So that big sign in heaven is starting very, very soon, in just a few weeks' time. And it says, as Micah says, this is when the spiritual Israel's remnants will return to Israel, children of Israel, only after she is given birth, according to Micah 5. But what that really means is it's a significant spiritual return of Israel. I believe that, really quick, God will be more apparent to Israel. This is probably, he will probably be with them when they will build the third temple, I believe, and to show that he is with them. So therefore, Micah 5 and Revelation 12, or the sign in heaven, we can use them together, and this is very soon to come and it marks a time in which true return of Israel will occur. But unfortunately, the 7 years begin at the time of Israel's spiritual renewal. Unfortunately, well, just as the sign in heaven shows that there's going to be a spiritual renewal in Israel, where God, as it were, comes in the form of aiding Israel to improve itself. There will be, I believe, it will mark the 7 year of tribulation, as it says, the woman is in travail. That's when this is when travail and pains, birth pangs. The world will experience birth pangs, and the tribulations like earthquakes and wars and things. And not only the world, but because this sign in heaven includes Israel, well, they will experience probably the invasion, an invasion like Ezekiel 38 and 39 shows. But again, God will be on their side. But this travail will occur at the time of the sign in heaven, where persecution of Christians and Jews will also happen, because each time the Bible talks about labour pains, problems occur, and this sign in heaven will begin that troublesome time of tribulation. Yes, each time the Bible talks about birth pangs, which I believe will start at the time of the sign in heaven, there's always problems on the earth. For instance, Jeremiah 22 verse 23, chapter 22 verse 23, "O you who are dwelling in Lebanon, being nested in its cedars, how you will certainly sigh when there come to you birth pangs, the birth pangs like those of a woman giving birth." That's one. And also 1 Thessalonians 5:3, "Whenever it is they are saying peace and security, then sudden destruction is to be instantly upon them, just as the pangs of distress upon a pregnant woman, and they will by no means escape." Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. I really believe the Son in Heaven next year, 23rd September, we have 1 year to go, that it will be the beginning of pangs of distress, the 7-year tribulation, Jacob's trouble. But the only trouble is this: the time of spiritual renewal of Israel will mark the beginning of this. So that's what's going to happen. As it were, God will come back in a spiritual sense to Israel, because Israel is like a lost sheep, without the shepherd. God is their shepherd. It's like, Israel's without a king, without a Godhead, as it were, and just lost. But when the sign in heaven gives birth to Jupiter, which I believe is the king planet that represents the Messiah, won't come back in the flesh. God, Christ warned of this. It's in a spiritual sense, spiritual rebirth. For instance, in Matthew 24 verse 23, this is Jesus warning what to look for. "Then if anyone says to you, 'Look, here is the Christ,' or 'there,' do not believe it." It's not. He didn't say he's coming back in the flesh. You see, for the false Christ and false prophets will arise and will give great signs and wonders, so as to mislead, if possible, even the chosen ones. "Look, I have forewarned you, therefore, if people say to you, 'Look, he's in the wilderness,' do not go out. 'Look, he's in the inner chambers,' do not believe it." See, he's not in the flesh. It says here, "For just as the lightning comes out of the eastern parts and shines over the western parts, so the presence of the Son of Man will be." See, that he's come back in a spiritual sense. So the constellation of Virgo represents Israel with the 12 tribes, 12 stars above her head. Please check out my second part which is about the red dragon, I believe is planet X. And thank you very much for listening, and repent, because the tribulation is very soon.